नमस्ते, मेरा नाम ईशान चड्ढा है और मैं दुनिया को और भी अच्छा बनाना चाहता हूँ. Hello, my name is Ishan Chadha and I need your help. You know how they say one person can change the world? Well, that one person can't change the world if the world isn't willing to comply. So I just have one question for you. Are you willing to change yourselves to make this world a better society to live in?
Wednesday, September 16th, was a CNN Republican primary debate. And this time, I thought my brother had acquired enough gravitas to comprehend the complex politics that went on. So I let him watch the debate. So, of course, he thought that the tawdry quirks of candidate Donald Trump were quite funny, but some of his conceptual analyses were actually quite interesting. So, one of his thoughts was that we should build a wall between Mexico and the USA to prevent undocumented immigration from Latin America to the US. So we both laughed at this point.
I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
But then I realized something. What is the alternate to this? Candidate Trump is just trying to make a point which everyone else is scared to make because no one actually knows what to do. So I asked him, what does he think of candidate Jeb Bush's idea about putting soldiers along the border?
Nation with local and state law enforcement.
Nah, I don't like it.
Well, then what should we do?
I don't know.
See? So I did some research and I attempted to come up with a solution.
Well, I pondered over our discussion for a few days, but I frowned upon my discoveries. This was because my research was telling me exactly what Trump's research told him, and that was that we would need a strong constrainment along the US-Mexico border because there weren't enough field offices and there were too many Mexicans. A few days later, I was browsing the CNN website, and the recurrence of the article about the European immigration crisis really seemed to be a nuisance. But that's when it all came to me. This was the relatable issue I was looking for. So take a look at this. These three countries are illegally migrating into these three countries. Isn't that a relatable issue? There's just a slight problem though. This issue wasn't solved yet either, but no need to worry. Since this is a global issue, I could ask people around the world about this. So I created a report and a survey and asked people from 4 different continents. Countries included were the Czech Republic, Australia, my home country, the US, and India. And the results are remarkable. The analytics are posted right here.
After running a few analyses and diagnostics on my survey, once it had, I'd say, nearly 100 respondents, the results were simply beautiful. Out of these results, most of them tried to state that we should put some sort of constrainment along the borders to help prevent any kind of transportation across the border that's illegal. But after doing a little bit more research, I realized that from President Pena and President Obama's last meeting, which are the US and Mexican presidents, I realized that the border is also a huge center for flow of commerce. So if we blocked it off, then it'd be a huge detriment to our economies. So how could we help this? What if we let US citizens pass in for free? And same with Mexican citizens that are undocumented. Well, this is what we could do. Imagine, in terms of the playground, if I wanted to come in, but in terms of documentation, let's say documentation was you had to be under 5 feet tall and under 120 pounds, which I'm not. So what would happen is I would be sent to a certain state of the US in terms of the playground, let's say the swing set. I would be sent here where I would get documented, and therefore I would have really the documentation I need, and I'd already be in the US. We actually tried giving free documentation once before in US history, but there was a slight problem. While doing this, what happened was that the Mexican citizens didn't really trust the US government. So therefore we're going to need the Mexican president to convey this message to his or her citizens. So that's why we think this will work. But there's just another problem following that. If we send Mexican citizens to a state, let's say a state like Utah, there might be some ethnic problems because the Mormons already live there. And that's why I need to once again ask you, are you willing to change to help our world today?
Are human rights, you may ask? Well, everything, right? Not necessarily. Basically, human rights are rights that let humans retain their property. So, let's say that 1 job and 2 equals marry. let's say that 3 equals Billy. So let's say Bob, Mary, and Billy all wanted to work on a team. So you added all the numbers together. Well, they're all still numbers, right? So they retain their properties. So that's a human right. You can work as a team. Let's say Billy didn't want Bob on his team, so he subtracted him off the team. Well, 2 is still a number, so it's also a human right to kick someone off the team. Well, let's say Mary didn't like Billy very much and wanted to murder him, so she divided him by 0. Well, is that even a number anymore? So therefore, murder isn't something that you can do and isn't a human right because the number didn't retain its properties. So anything from adding to get some people on a team, to subtracting to kick some people off a team, to making a complex government by integrating some numbers under, or integrating some people under a government, would all be human rights because they all let numbers retain their properties. So if you integrated a lot of people under a government, it's still a number. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that in a way more complicated way, human rights are properties that let humans retain their own culture.